Okay, hello everyone. Okay, so the next program in chapter 4 is file head display. Okay, so write a program that asks the user for the name of a file. The program should display only the first 5 lines of the file's content. If the file contains fewer than 5 lines, it should display the file's entire content. Okay, so we are going to, I don't know what I don't know if the program wants us to create the file. Let's say I don't want if it wants, for example, if I don't want to know if it wants us to open, let's say, a notepad file in Windows, or let's say a text edit file in Mac, and type in some text, and then write the program to just access that file, or it wants us to write a program to basically write the content ourselves in a file and access them. I mean, both ways will work. If we open, let's say, text edit in Mac or notepad in Windows, we can go ahead, for example, and open the text edit file and then type it ourselves and use the program or write code to access contents from that file. But the thing is, we already know how to write content into a file using code. So although this program doesn't state in an explicit way that we should go ahead and create the file or type in the file, or create the contents in the file with code, we should go ahead, just for practice, because we already know how to use code to write text into a file. So let's just go ahead, write text into a file ourselves, or write the program in such a way that the user can write contents into the file and then access the file and read the first 5 content. And if there's less than five lines, or the first 5 lines, if there's less than 5 lines, then the program should display all the content. So I think you have a better understanding once we start. Okay, we're basically going to create a program that's going to allow the user to enter content into a file, whether 5 lines or 6 lines, any number of lines. The program is then going to access the first 5 lines of the file. If there are more than 5 lines, it's only going to access the first 5 lines and display it. If there are less than 5 lines, the program is going to access all those lines. Okay. All right, so let's start. I'm going to go ahead and create the class. Like I said, as we are doing it, you'll get a better understanding of it. So I'm going to go ahead and create the class, and I'll call it file head display. And I'll go ahead and create the main method. Okay, so since like I mentioned, we are going to allow the user to enter content into the file, and we are going to be accepting we're going to be accepting content from the user. So we have to use one of Java's features for accepting input from the user. For this one, I'm going to use a scanner. For this one, I'm going to use a scanner class to do that. So to use a scanner class, we need to import it. So I'm going to do that with import java.util.scanner. So this is going to basically give the program access to the scanner class. Now, once we've created a scanner class, we need to create a scanner object to use so that we can use a scanner. So I'm going to create a scanner object. I'm going to call it scanner, and I'm going to create a new scanner object in memory, and I'm going to connect it to the system. Actually, I'm going to pass in the system.in method, which is going to accept byte info from the keyboard and then connect it to the scanner class. We can then go ahead and use the methods in the scanner class to convert what the user has typed to doubles or integers or whatever we need. So now we have the scanner class. So let's see the first thing we want to do. Since we are going to write the program in such a way that the person is going to enter contents themselves. Let's say that the person is going to enter contents line by line. So let's go ahead and do that. Right? Let's go ahead and ask the user to enter content into the file. Before I do that, since we are going to be working with files, we need to go ahead and import java.io the asterisk, because we're going to be working with the print writer, basically files. So we need to import this so it has access. The program has access to the file class, basically. Okay. All right. So we are not going to allow the user to create the file, by typing in the file name. Let's go ahead and create the file ourselves. Let's go ahead and create the file so the user can type into the file. You can modify the program if you want the user to create the file themselves by typing in the file name. But let's go ahead and create the file ourselves. So to do that, I need to create a print writer object. So I'm going to create a print writer object. I'm going to call it file name. Okay. So I'm going to declare a print writer object. Okay, and I'm going to create a new print writer. A new print writer object, and I'm going to pass in the file name. I'm going to call it maybe file head display or text. I don't know, file head display, or let me just say contents.text. Contents.text. I'll make it small. Contents.txt. So what this is going to do is it's going to create a file, a file in memory, okay, called content.txt, and then connect that file to the file name. So now we're going to use the file name to access that file, okay, to basically write content into the file. Now let's ask the user what they want to write into the file. Okay, I want to use a loop so that the user types in contents line by line. So we'll say please enter a line, and then we'll ask the user, do you want to enter another line? We'll keep on doing that, but there are so many ways to do this, but this is what came to mind, so this is how I'm going to do it. And so I'm going to go ahead and create a variable here. I'm going to call this variable, I'm going to call it more lines. Okay, more lines. So it's basically it's going to be a char variable called more lines, and I'm going to set it to y. Okay, y for yes. Actually, no, char is one single quote. Okay, so I'm going to create a variable char called more lines, and I'm going to set it to y, which means yes. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do, or how I'm going to use more lines. I'm going to say while more lines, okay, is equal to y. Okay, whilst it's equal to the y, by default it's equal to the y. So whilst it's equal to y, which means yes, keep asking the user for more lines unless the user unless the user says no. Okay, no or something. Excuse me, let me just terminate this. Okay, and terminate the mail. Thanks. Okay, so while more lines is equals to y, then keep asking the user if they want to enter more lines. If the user types in something else, we'll let me go ahead and type it, and it will make sense as I do it. So while more lines is equal to y, let's go ahead and ask the user to enter a line. So system.out.println, we're going to say go ahead. Let's say before that, let's go ahead and take the first line before the while loop. Let's go ahead and take the first line before the while loop. So we're going to say please enter the first line. Okay, please enter the first line, and we're going to go ahead and create a variable before that. So we're going to ask the user, please enter the first line, and I'm going to go ahead and use a scanner to prompt a text box for the user to type in something. So I'm going to say scanner.next line, which is going to allow the user to type in something. It's going to basically take that thing that the user types and then convert it to a string. In this case, it's a string, so it's going to keep it as a string and then return it. When it returns it, we need a place to store it. So I'm going to go ahead and create a string variable, and I'm going to call it content. I'm going to call it content or user content. Okay, that's the content that the user is going to type. So user content this way, and when the user types in the first line, user content. Should I call it user line? I'll call it user line because it's not user content. I'll call it user line. So when the user types in All right, so this is scanner.nextLine to prompt out the text box. When the user types in the next line, it's going to return that string, and then we're going to store that line in user line. So now we have the first line, we have user line here. So we're going to say while more lines is equals to y, which it is. By default, it's equal to y over here. That's the first time. Go ahead and since we have since we have the first line stored in user line, we can go ahead and print it, okay, and print it in the file. Okay, we already created the file here, and we've associated that file to the object of printWriter object file name. So we can go ahead and say file name dot println. Let's see. Okay, we'll fix it. I'm seeing like a potential error here, but let's go ahead and say file name dot println. Okay, we are printing the line into the file, and we are printing the content in user line. So basically, it's going to print this in the file. And then let's go ahead and ask the user again, do you want to enter another line? Okay, you're going to ask the user, do you want to enter another line right in the while loop? So do you want to enter another line? And we'll say please enter type, and no, let's say enter y for yes. Okay, enter y for yes. And for this one, we want to get the response. Okay, we want to get the response of the user. So I'm going to say create another string variable. I'm going to say user response. Just a string that's going to hold a response for that. So user response. And for this one, I'm going to use a scanner also the same way, and then call the next line method. Now the next line method it takes what the user types and returns it as a string. Okay. Okay. We actually don't need the user response. We already have more lines here. We already have more lines, so we can use it. We can use more lines to accept the input. We are asking the user, do you want to enter another line? Okay, and we are asking the user to enter y for yes. So if the user enters y, it's going to take that y, okay, and return it as a string. But I want us to go ahead and store it in more lines. But more lines is a char variable, and this method is going to return the string that the user is going to type. Right? We want a character stored in more lines. By default, y is stored in more lines. So the way we can get a character from that string that the user types. Even if the user types in y is going to return as a string and stored in a char variable, which won't work. So let's go ahead and find a way to convert that y that the person types into more lines. Okay. Another thing, the user can also go ahead and type yes instead of y. So all we are interested in is y, the first character of the whatever they type. If they type y like this, we are interested in y, the first character. If they type yes, we are interested in y, the first character. Now we know that strings have indexes, positions. Okay, the first letter of every string has an index of 0. The second letter of every string has an index of 1, 2, and so on. So we can always access the first character of any word. Okay. If the user types in just y, this is the first character of this string. If the user types in yes, this is the first character of this string. So let's find a way to access the first character. To do that, we can say, now this whole thing is this whole thing is returning a string. Okay, so to access the first character of that string, we can end it sorry, with .char@. Now char@ means, okay, I'm going to put a 0 here. So this means that of the string that the user typed, okay, give me the character at position 0. Now, as I mentioned, each string has index. Okay, index is the same as the position. So give me the character at index 0, meaning the first character. The first character has index 0. The second character has index 1. The third character has index 2, and so on. So scanner.next line dot character at 0 means give me the first character of that string. If the user types in yes, we are getting the first character. If the user types in y, we are still getting the first character. We're getting y. Now we have a char variable, and we can store it in more lines. More lines accept only char variables. By default is yes. So if the user types in y, the loop is going to go back up, and more lines is still going to be y. So this loop is still going to be running unless the user types in, let's say, any other thing than y. Then this loop is going to break, or this loop is going to exit. So I hope you understand. All right. So if the user says that where is it? If the user says yes over here, then more lines is going to be yes. It's going to be y, and this loop is going to go ahead and run again. It's going to go ahead and run again. But the thing is, the reason why I said there's a potential error is this: file name.print user line is still going to contain the first line, the first line that the person typed. So let's find a way to fix that. Okay, so you're going to take the first line. It's going to be stored in user line. Let's see, 1 second. Okay, so what we can do is this. We can go ahead and cut this whole thing. Cut this whole string and put it in the while loop. So in that case, we fixed it. So while more lines is equals to y, which it is. Okay, the user is going to ask the first question. Please enter. I forgot to enter that. Please enter the first line. Whatever the user typed is going to be stored in user line. We are going to write that content to the file. We're going to ask the user again, do you want to enter another line? Enter y for yes. If it's y, it's going to be stored in more lines. It's going to come up. As long as y is more lines is equals to y, this loop is going to run again. If more lines is equals to no, then this loop is going to continue down. Okay. All right. So once the user is done typing everything into the file, we need to go ahead and close that file. Okay. So this is what we are writing. This is the print writer object we are using to write. So let's go ahead and close that that file. Okay, the file that we're writing to, and we do that with file name dot close. File name, okay, is the object, the print writer object. So we are closing the file that we are writing to. We are closing the file that we are using the print writer object to write to. Okay, so now we've closed the file. So the next thing we want to do is, now this process was just to write content to the file so that we can access content from it. So the next thing we want to do is we want to we want to kind of represent a file, okay, with a file object. We want to represent it, okay, and I'll show you what that does. I'll explain what that does. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a file object, and I'm going to call it file. Okay, let's how do I call this? I'm going to call this file opened, okay, and that's going to be equal to a new file, and okay, and this over here. Okay, so let's see. Write a program that asks the user for the name of a file. Okay, so for the name of the file, we are going to ask the user to enter it. Okay, we've created the file. We're going to actually ask the user to enter it. So the user has to enter contents.txt, okay, for them to be able to access the content of the file. Okay, so what I'm going to do is first, let's go ahead and ask the user for the name of the file. So I'm going to go ahead and create a print statement and say system.out.println, and we're going to ask the user to please enter the name of the file you want to open, and they're going to type it in here. So we need a place to store what they're going to type, right? To actually allow them to type in something, we need to use a scanner to prompt for content. So we say scanner.nextLine and that's going to basically pop up a text box and allow them to type in something. And when they do, we need a place to store it. So I'm going to create another string variable, and I'm going to call it file to open. I'm just going to say file to open, and file to open is going to hold the file name that the user wants to open. So file to open is going to hold the file name that the user types that we want to open. And so let's go ahead and represent that file that the user wants to open, okay, with a file object. Okay, we are just associating a file object to that file that the user wants to open, and we are going to use that file object to check to see if that file exists. So now we've created a file object here, and we are associating it with the file to open, the name of the file that the user typed. So I'm going to copy it and put it here. We are just associating this file object here, file opened, okay, with the file that the user wants to open. And once we do that, let's go ahead and check to see if that file exists. And the way we do that is this: if actually, let's do while. Okay, let's do while, so that we can, if the user types in a different file name, it will keep on asking, or it will keep on telling the user that the file doesn't exist, so type another name. So let's do a while loop and say this, and say okay, let's say while file opened. Okay, file opened is this, is the file that represents, file open is just a name. You can change it to something that makes sense to you. So file open just represents, it's going to represent the file that the user wants to open. So while file opened, okay, while file open dot exist, we're going to use the method dot exist. Oops. So while file open dot exist, okay, that means, okay, that means that while it exists, then let's do something. Actually, let me go ahead and, I was thinking about starting it with while it doesn't exist. Okay, so it's fine. Let's go ahead and use this while file open dot exist, meaning whilst the file exists, let's do something. Okay, before we do something, let's go ahead and say else. Else meaning if the file doesn't exist. If the file doesn't exist. I'm trying to structure it so it makes sense. Let's go ahead and cancel this else part of it. Okay, and I'm sorry if this is being rough, but we are just thinking through it to try to make it as efficient as possible. Okay, so while file open dot exist, I'm going to change it to while file open, does not exist. So this exclamation sign negates file open dot exist. So that means that while file open does not exist now, this now means not. So it just puts not in front of this. So first it was file open dot exist. Now this means now while the file opened does not exist. Okay, while it doesn't exist, tell the user that the file doesn't exist, the file name doesn't exist. So system.out.println, oops, we have the name of the file stored in file to open, so we can actually use it in the print statement and say file to open. I'm going to concatenate it with a string and say file to open does not exist, and then we can say please enter another, please try again. So before that, I'm going to go ahead and break the line to a new line. This is a new line character. It's basically going to make everything that I type after this new line character appear on the next line. So I'm going to say please try again, please enter the file again, enter another file name. And once we give the user an opportunity to enter another file name, we want to accept it. We want to accept it again. All right, so let's go ahead and copy the same line. This same line is going to allow the user to type in something. It's going to store it in file to open. Okay, the user is going to type in the name of the file again. It's going to store it in file to open. We are going to try, we've already declared this file open object, so now we are going to just try. Once the user enters another file name, let's go ahead and represent that new file name that the user has typed here, file to open. Okay, now to the file open now to the file open object that we've created here. Okay, so when the user types in the name of a new file name here, let's go ahead and now associate that new file name that the user has typed to the file open object that we've created here. And what's going to happen is now file opened, is going to hold it's going to be an object representing the new file name. So we're going to now go back and check again to see if the file we're going to now go and check to see if the file exists does not exist. Okay, so if it does not exist, it's going to go ahead and repeat this process and basically wait for the user to type in something that exists. Okay, so if it does exist, then this loop is going to exit. Okay, right. So if it exits this loop and goes out of this loop, basically it means that the file exists. So if the file exists, we want to now go ahead and read content from the file. Okay, so let's start doing that. The program says we should read the first 5 lines of the file. Okay, so if the file contains 10 lines, we should read only the first 5 lines. If the file contains, let's say, 3 lines, we should read only 3 lines of the file. So there are a couple of ways you can do this, but I'm going to use a while loop. I'm going to use a while loop and say this. Let's assume the file has been created now. Let's assume the file has been created now with, let's say, a couple of lines. We don't know yet, but let's say it has lines. The file has content in there. Now we're going to say this. There is a method has next, and I'll use it and I'll explain it. So I'll say while the file opened, okay? And again, that's the file that's representing the file that the user wants to open. So file opened is the file that is the object that represents the file that the user wants to open. So while file opened dot has next. Has next means while it has a line in there. Okay, so basically, if there are 5 lines in there, then has next is going to basically read the first line and then move on to the next, move the cursor to the next line. Okay, so that means it's going to return true because it found 1 line. If you call this has next again, it's going to read the second line, move the cursor to the third line, and because it read the second line, it's not going to return true. But if the third line doesn't have, for example, if the file doesn't have any third line, the has next method is going to return false. So this has next is basically checking to see if there's a line in the file. Okay, now I want to check to see if the file has a line, and I want to check to see if this loop has run only 5 times. Both conditions have to be true. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and initialize a variable. I'm going to call it number of lines, and I can go ahead and even initialize it on top here just to keep my variables on top here. So I'm going to say int number of lines. I'm going to set it to 1. I'm starting from 1. Okay, so while file open dot has next, okay, meaning while the file has a line, and at the same time I'm going to use the 2% for end, and at the same time number of lines here, and at the same time number of lines is less than or equal to 5. Okay, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want the loop to run 5 times. If the file has a line, and at the same time the loop, the number of times that the loop has run is less than or equal to 5, then that's what I want. I want the loop to first make sure that the line has a I want the loop to first make sure the file has a line, and I want to make sure that this loop has run only 5 times or less. Okay, so what's going to happen is this: if it has a line, it's going to run. The loop is going to run and get that line. We'll put that code in the while loop. But guess what's going to happen if the loop doesn't have a line? If the loop doesn't have a line, then this Boolean expression here is going to return false, and nothing is going to happen. If the loop has a line, let's see. Yeah. Basically, that's what's going to happen. If the loop has a line, this Boolean expression is we're going to write code to get that line. Okay, if the loop has, let's say, 10 lines, okay, this part of the Boolean expression is going to be true. But if the loop has run only, let's say is running for the 6th time, this Boolean expression will result to false, because I want the loop to only run 5 times or less. So again, you understand it as we move on. So this is what I want to happen. If it has a line, at the same time this loop has run 5 times or less, then I want to go ahead and read that line from, actually let's go ahead and print that line. Let's go ahead and print system.out.print ln the line in the file, the first line. So we're going to say again before. So now we've gone ahead to represent the file with this file object, which is file opened. Now to actually read from the file, okay, to read from the file, let's go ahead. We have to use the scanner object to do that. So we have to go ahead and create another scanner object. So I'm going to create that scanner object here, and this time I'm going to call it this scanner object file. I'm going to say file to read. I'm just going to call this file to read. It's just going to be an object that's going to represents the source that we're going to read from. Okay, so file to read is going to be equal to new scanner. Okay, new scanner, and what we are going to read from in this case is going to be the file that's open, the file that's open. Okay, the objects that we've used represent the file that the user wants to open. Okay, this file opened, the file object. Okay, the file object here, file opened. We are reading from that file. So file opened. So we are creating a scanner object that is going to use the file opened as its source of input, as its source of, basically what is going to get input from. And this file to read is going to represent it. So we are going to use this file to read to access basically the contents in that file. All right, so system.out.print now. Okay, again, while the file has a line, and at the same time this loop is running, has run 5 times or less. Okay, then let's go ahead and print the first line, and the way to do that is we use the scanner objects that we've created to access the line. You say file to read dot next line. Sorry. So file to read dot next line is basically going to grab that next line and print it. All right. Once it prints it, let's go ahead and also print a new line, so that the next one is going to print on another line. Okay, we want to print it nicely, so I'm going to concatenate it with a new line character. So /n again is the new line. It's basically, like before, like I explained before, it's going to basically move anything that comes after the new line to another line. All right, so move anything that comes after this new line character to another line. So the next time this loop runs and it prints this statement, if indeed there's a line in the file, that line is going to come after this line has printed. All right, so that's basically what's going to happen. While both of these things are true, it's going to go ahead and read the line and print it. Okay, so if the file has 10 lines, it's true the file has a line. Okay, for example, if it reaches the 4th line, it's true the file has a line, and it's true by the 4th line. That means this loop has run 4 times. If it runs the 5th time, the file has a line, because that's going to be the 5th line, and this loop, is less than or equal to 5, has run 5 times. But now, one more thing we need to do is anytime this loop is done, we need to add increment number of lines by 1. The reason why we want to do that is because otherwise we'll have an infinite loop. I've declared number of lines to 1, so basically each time this loop runs, number of lines is going to be still 1, because there's nothing that's incrementing number of lines. So this loop is going to be an infinite loop. But what I want to happen is, if it, for example, if the file has 10 lines, right? If it gets to, let's say, the fourth line, it's true, the file has a fourth line, and then the loop, the number of lines, okay, is less than or equal to 5, because by that time the loop has run 4 times, so number of lines will be equal to 4. Okay, so it prints the fourth line, and it increments number of lines to 5. When it gets to 5, basically the file will have a fifth line, and number of lines will be less than or equal to 5, because number of lines will be 5 at that time. It's going to print the fifth line. It's going to increment number of lines to 6. When it gets to the sixth line, the file has a sixth line, of course, because it has 10 lines in total. But number of lines is not less than or equal to 5. Number of lines is less than, sorry, is 6. It's greater than or equal to, sorry, it's greater than 5. So it's not less than or equal to 5. It's 6. Okay, so in that case, this loop is going to end, meaning we are going to print only the first 5 content. Now, if the file has less than 5 lines, if the file has, let's say, 2 lines, when you go to the first line, the file is going to have a first line, and the number of lines is going to be equal to 1 the first time this loop runs, because initially it's 1. And then it's going to print out the first line and increments number of lines to 2. Now, number of lines is 2. When you get to the second line, the file will have a second line, but number of lines will be less than or equal to 5, okay? Because it's 2. Number of lines will still be less than or equal to 5. So it's going to go ahead and print the second line, and it's going to increment number of lines to 3. When you get to the third line, now we are assuming the file has only 2 lines, right? Has only 2 lines. We said we said I quit this, but it keeps on going. All right, sorry about that. So let's assume the file has 2 lines. So when it prints the second line, it's going to increment number of lines, by 1. So number of lines will be 3, right? So if it gets here and it tries to search for a next line, okay? If the file has a next line, which has next line, the file doesn't have a next line. Although number of lines is 3, although number of lines is less than or equal to 5, this is true, but the file doesn't have a next line. So this loop will end, it terminates, and it will print only 2 lines. We are assuming the file has 2 lines. Initially, I said let's assume the file has 3 lines, but I'm just trying to make it short so that I don't talk too much. So I change it to assuming the file has 2 lines. So it's basically the same thing. 2 lines, 3 lines. It's basically the same thing. It's all less than 5. So I'm trying to explain the process of basically how the loop is going to work when we have less than 5 lines. Okay. So I hope you understand. So you increment the number of lines by 1, and it's going to loop. And as long as these 2 are true, it's going to print a line. If one of these is false, then nothing's going to happen. So basically, what this loop is going to do is it's going to print out a line. It's going to print out the first 5 lines if the file has more than 5 lines, or exactly 5 lines. And at the same time, if the file has less than 5 lines, it's going to print out all the lines. That's basically what this is going to do. Once we are done printing all the lines, let's go ahead and close the file. Close the file that we are reading from. In this case, we are using file to read from the file open. So let's go ahead and use the scanner that's scanning from this file opened. Let's go ahead and close it. File to read dot close. And sorry, and we are done. All right, so let's before anything, let me go ahead and do something here. Let's go ahead and we actually haven't saved this file. I wanted to go and check the folder of the file, but we haven't created this file, so we haven't created any folder for this file. So let's do that. So I'm going to go ahead and compile. It's one of my old files. Oops. Okay, so desktop. And let's go to Java Programming Challenges and chapter 4. So this is going to be, I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it File Head Display. And I'll save it here. I'm sure we have a couple of errors. Okay, so let's see. It says here, cannot find symbol, method has next. All right, let's see. So while file open dot has next and number of lines is less than or equal to 5. Where's file opened? I'm trying to figure out what exactly is wrong. File opened. Let me see something. Okay. Let me go ahead and fix something here. Anytime we use, and I don't think that's the fix for this, but let's go ahead and do that. Anytime we use a file, okay, any method, okay, in this case, right, I'm referring to the main method. Any method we include any file object, and okay, all right. So any file that we before that, I'll come to that in a moment, but I think I've seen another error here. So let's try to fix that and see if that's the problem. So let's see. Symbol variable cannot find another symbol, which is number lines, which is here. I named it number of lines here, and I used number lines here. So I'm going to change it to number of lines and compile this. Okay, so now we have only this has next. All right. Now let me go back to what I was trying to say with exceptions. Anytime you in a method you try to use any file object or the print writer, basically anything from the file class, the method that you basically write code in has the potential to throw an exception. Meaning, for example, if I'm trying to read from a file, or I'm trying to create a file that and let's say my disk is full, the program is going to crash, or it's going to throw an exception and say, look, your computer is full, so we can't create a file. It basically has the potential to create or throw an exception, or basically cause an error. So chapter 4 doesn't talk about chapter 4 doesn't talk about basically how to write our own codes to handle exceptions. So one way to do it is at this point, okay, is this. We have two options. Either we write our own code to handle those exceptions, or we throw the exception back at the method, okay? Or we basically throw the exception back. Because we haven't learned how to write our own codes to handle exceptions, we are going to throw it back. And the way we do that is throws the method basically any method that you are writing file, you are using the file object in, or the file object in, okay, or the print writer, or anything that has to do with a file, any object method that you are running, you're writing code in that kind of code in there. In the file header, you end it with throws IO exception. And what you are saying with this is this. You are saying this method contains code that has the potential to this is throws, okay, not throw. You're saying this method that contains the code, the code about files and print writers and all that, has the potential to throw an exception. But because we haven't learned how to write code to handle exceptions ourselves, we are going to throw the exception back. So meaning we are telling you to handle it for us, okay, until we learn how to write our own code. Okay, so basically what this throws exception, IO exception, does is this. It tells the method that, hey, we haven't learned how to write our own code to handle exception yet. So when it throws an exception, I'm saying this statement so that you handle it for us until we learn how to write our own code. So basically that's what it does. Even if this whole main method has another method in there that uses the file class, or the print writer or stuff like that, as long as that method has the potential to throw an exception, you have to end that method with throws IO exception. And because that method is in the main method also, you have to also end the main method with throws IO exception. So any method that uses file object, you have to end that file header with throws IO exception. And you have to, and if that method is in another method, you have to end that outer method with throws IO exception. Okay, until we find our own ways to write code to handle exceptions. But like I said, chapter 4 doesn't cover that. I don't think this is the fix for this, but let's go ahead and compile it, and I think it's still going to bring us back. All right, so has next, So I'm trying to figure out why, because has next is correct. I don't know why it's saying that. Am I typing it wrongly? It's a method. File opened. Oops. Okay, so let me see something. File to read. Okay, so so what happened was I was using the wrong object. Okay, this is the file that is associated with the file we want to read from. Okay, so I mean, sorry, this is the object. Okay, not the file. This is the object. Okay, that is associated with the file that we want to read from. So this is the scanner. Okay, this is the scanner. This is what is basically going through the file, checking to see if there's stuff in there, and then reading from it. Not this one. This is only representing the file. So we can't use file open to check to see if it has next. This is what is scanning through the file. This is the object associated with the file, and we are going to use this to basically scan through the file. So this is what we have to use to check if the file has next, because this is the one that has this is the object that has the potential to go through the file and check and see basically what's in the file. So that's why it was giving us an error, because there's nothing wrong with has next. It looked okay, so I was wondering why, but I think I used the wrong object, and so that's why. So it works. Let's run it and see basically what happens. So before I do that, let me go ahead and open that. Let's go ahead and open desktop here. Let's go ahead and open the folder I just created to see if, and where is it? To see if the text file is there. Let's see. I can't find it. File head display. Okay, so we can see that it just has the Java files in there. Java the class, Java the Java file, the class file, and then this basically keeps any unsaved. Basically, like it doesn't keep everything yet until you close the file. Basically, it doesn't keep save. This contains, it's basically like one of your these files, but it doesn't contain everything. It's like your backup file, kind of. Okay, so so it doesn't have the file. It hasn't created a file yet, but we'll check back to see when the file gets created. So what's going to happen? Let's go ahead and run the program. So it says, please enter the first line, meaning, let's see, meaning this file has been created already. So contents.txt. Let's go and check to see content.txt has been created. Now we're just asking for the user to enter stuff to print it in. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this and see. So I'm going to enter, this is line 1, and then hit enter. And it says, do you want to enter another line? Enter Y for yes. So I'm going to enter Y. And it says, please enter. I didn't change, let's see. I didn't change the text, so it looks a bit awkward. But let me compile this. Let me just make sure if this has anything. It doesn't have anything yet because, okay, I terminated the program. All right, so please enter the first line. Okay, so let me change this to please enter a line so it makes sense. Okay, so compile. And run. So please enter a line. I'm going to say, this is line 1. Do you want to enter another line? I'm going to hit yes. Please enter a line. I'm going to say, this is line 2. And yes, this is line 3. Yes. I want to enter 6 lines because we only want to display the first 5 lines. So let's see what happens. This is line 6. Now, do you want to enter another line? I'm going to hit anything other than Y so that we break out of this loop and continue reading from the file. So I'm going to enter N for no, but you could basically enter. I should have said please enter N for no, but basically anything that is not Y will work. So hit N, and I will say please enter the name of the file you want to open. I'm going to enter anything else. Okay, the name of the file we want to open is contents.txt. Now there's no way we didn't tell the user that's the name of the file, but just for the sake of this program, we are assuming the user knows. Okay. The question didn't actually say that we should create a file using the program. It wanted us to actually probably go to Notepad or text edit and then type in stuff ourselves. But since we knew how to write content, by using code, I just wanted us to do it. So enter the name of the file you want to open. I'm going to enter something else. I'm going to say this.txt and hit enter. Now it says this.txt does not exist. Please enter another file name. So we enter something else. It says this does not exist. So it's going to keep telling you that until you enter a file name that exists. And that's what this while loop is doing. So now I'm going to enter content.txt because that exists, it should be able to read content from it and hit enter. And now it says okay, so it works, but I think I typed in this twice. So this is line 1, this is line 2. I should have displayed something to make it look good. Let's go ahead and open the file and see. I thought I opened it. Okay, so Java content of the file. So see, content of the file has actually more than 6 lines. See, I typed in this. Let me open it. I apologize. Let me open this with text edit. So see, I typed in 4 twice. So this is the first 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's why it's displaying over here. And even though it has 7 lines, it's displaying that. Okay, so let's go ahead and change this and make it look even better. So what's happening is we can see that there are lines in between this. Let's try to fix that. And that's because of this line here. We are printing this. We are printing. Okay, this is a print ln, so it ends with a new line. All right, so let's see. Okay, that's also because this is displaying the content with an extra new line. So let's go ahead and delete it and see how it displays. So every time we run the program, it's going to basically replace. Oh boy. Okay, I think it's here. Okay, so we have it here. So it's going to display. It's going to replace that file with a new file. Basically, anytime we run the program. So there's nothing in here now. I'm going to type something else. Please enter, and I'm going to say. Line 1, yes. Line 2, yes. Line 3, line 4, line 5, 6. Sure, let's go all the way to 8, 7, 8. Oops. Oh, that's because it was asking me. Please enter the, over here. It says, do you want to enter another line? Instead of hitting yes, I hit another thing. And like I said, anything that's not Y, it's basically a no. So that's why it said, please enter the name of the file. I hit line 8 and it said line 8 does not exist. So now I think I have 7 lines, and I can go ahead and check. I keep on closing that. I don't know why I do that. All right, so let's. I'll keep that open this time around. Close this. See, okay, we have 6 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's because when I reached line 7, it was asking me, do you want to enter another line? I said this, which means no, so it didn't really print line 7. So I have 6 lines. So let's go ahead and enter content.txt, which is the name of the file. Hit enter, and now it says line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, line 5. I can even add a string, a system.out.print statement here, which is here. Before that, and say the first 5 lines of the file are okay, and then this is basically going to print once, and then the rest are going to follow. Okay, so let's try this again. So again, this is when we know, okay, we knew that the file had 6 lines, but it displayed 5. So this time I'm going to enter just letters, so so it's quick. So please enter a line. I'm going to enter A, yes, B, yes, C, yes, D, E, F, G, H. Do you want to enter another line? I'll say no. Now it says please enter the name of the file. I enter something else. It says it does not exist. Please enter another file. I say content.txt. I'm not going to hit enter yet. Let's go ahead and check to see what's in content. You see, we have A, B, C. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So A, B, C, D, E is basically what we want, what we expect to print. The first 5 lines. So let's hit contents.txt and see what happens here. And it displayed the first 5 lines, A, B, C, D, E. Okay, so let's run this with less than 5 lines and see what happens. So I'm going to type in line 1, line 2. Oops, I did a mistake. It was asking me, do I wanted to did I want to enter another line, and I hit line 2, I think. Okay, so enter line 1, yes, line 2, yes, line 3. I'm going to enter only 3 lines. I'm going to say no and hit enter. Let's go ahead and check to see what's in the file. We have line 1, line 2, line 3. It's less than 5, and the program says that if the file contains fewer than 5 lines, it should display the file's entire content. So I'm going to hit content, txt, hit enter, and it says the first 5 lines of the file are, just the 3. I mean, although it's not 5 lines, it's still doing what the program is saying. It's still displaying all the contents of the file, if it's less than 5. If it's more than 5 lines, it's displaying only 5 lines. We can write the program, modify it so that if it's less than 5, it can say that these are the only lines in the file. It's not up to 5 yet. You can do that. You can modify the program to say that. But as far as this question is concerned, we have done it. And we even went like a step further to write the contents in the file ourselves, using code without having to just go to Notepad or text edit and type it in ourselves. So yeah, it works. If you have any questions, please comment down below and I'll do everything to respond to them. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time with the next program. Bye-bye.